hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of the wetlands as most recently amended. Notice of the time and place of this hearing was published in the Fairhaven Neighborhood News on May 4 of 2023. It was also posted in the town clerk's office. Because persons wishing to be heard will be called in the following order. And this meeting is going out live to broadcast. And will also be available on YouTube later. Okay, first will be minutes for approval. I know those are not ready yet, so we will vote on those at the next meeting. Is that correct, Ryan?
I sure hope so.
Nope. Okay. Meeting mail. So we have a letter received from TRC Engineers on behalf of PJ Keating, 72 South Main Street. Review of matters presented. TRC claims in their letter that PJ Keating is exempt from local stormwater bylaws and regulations. Town council suggests that this be peer reviewed. The agent has contacted EPA regarding these claims. EPA is getting an opinion from their attorney and will advise the agent. Agent requests that the commission vote to send a letter to peer review consultant. Review of matters presented. Votes may be taken.
So there's a technical issue that I asked EPA to clarify. Keating, in their letter, and they do have an industrial permit of their own, says that because they have an industrial permit, they're exempt from our bylaws and regulations. And they also went on to say, or their consultant, that they were grandfathered. So I checked with EPA, and EPA wasn't so sure about that, so they asked me to send them that letter, and that they would run it by their legal counsel and get us an opinion. And in the meantime, I had run it by town council, and Jeff Blake emailed back and said, they're looking for a legal opinion here, so this should go to peer review, and then based on what peer review says, he can give us a better opinion. So I'm asking that we ask Keating to agree to have this peer review to make sure that the letter's accurate, and we can move on.
Sure. And I'll read the first paragraph to
Yeah.
just add a little more context. So PJ Keating, from here on PJK, has requested that TRC review the Acushnet Stormwater Management Bylaw, Article 9 of the Acushnet General Bylaws and Regulations, and their applicability to PJK's one existing facility at 72 South Main Street, and present our findings to the Acushnet Stormwater Review Board. It is TRC's understanding that PJK has filed for a building permit for a RAP, capital letters RAP, shed to cover its processed recycled asphalt, a requirement of Mass DOT, and has been informed that a stormwater permit is required to the Conservation Commission's sign-off on the building permit application. I'll read a little more. So PJK already holds and maintains an individual stormwater NIMD's permit issued jointly by the US EPA and Mass DEP, and has prepared a comprehensive stormwater pollution prevention plan for its Acushnet facility in conjunction with that permit. Then they request a meeting with the board and/or commission as soon as one can be scheduled to discuss the bylaw and PJK's compliance with it. So your recommendation is that not happen until we go through this other part of the process?
Yeah, that we
Get a peer review.
get a peer review opinion on that,
Mm-hmm.
and then get the official opinion from EPA,
Right.
and then go forward.
Okay.
You know, currently the bylaw says that if there's a building permit involved, that we have the right to request stormwater.
Right.
And these are two large industrial, like, shrink wrap buildings? Is it a shrink wrap?
No, it's not, sir.
No?
No.
Do you want
Yeah,
to hear from Mr. Hill?
please.
You can just tell us what they are.
Yeah, what I was gonna ask.
My name is Derek Hill, and I'm the president of PJ Keating, so I'm here to speak on behalf of PJ Keating relative to the comments in the thing. So first, I'll speak to the building. The building is actually, it's called a RUB building. You'd see them, a lot of the DOT facilities. Just want to give you a visual. So the DOT buildings, they store salt. So it's a heavy thermal plastic with an aluminum rib structure.
Okay.
There's one existing out back. So that would be the building. A couple comments, additional comments there would be the existing area that we're looking to put the building is already on an impervious surface. So we're not impacting any more pervious areas of the property. So it's an impervious surface. It's right out front. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with where it is. Recycled asphalt pavement, is used in, we incorporate that into our hot mix. So it's one of the most sustainable projects when you think about circularity in the business cycle. A water bottle like that one, not so much. We get maybe 1 or 2% back, but recycled asphalt pavement, we put it back into the mix. After its life expectancy, we mill it back up and then we reincorporate it again. So, very sustainable process, fully circular in that process. So my only comment would be, or concern is peer review. So we have an earth removal permit application and we pay the town for a peer review. So that's not part of this building permit. So I'm just kind of trying to understand why we're going through such a process for a building that's already, it's an industrial use property. It's already an impervious area, so we're not changing the stormwater. Certainly the town has every right to drag this out, but I mean, it's pretty simple. I feel like we're gonna go back through a process like we did with the spoils pile out back, where we spent 4 months in front of you talking about it. We came to a deal, and then in the final hour, we were told, oh, you need an earth removal permit, and we were told, oh, hey, that stuff's municipal solid waste. We clearly got a letter from DEP saying it's not municipal solid waste. We are going through to get our earth removal permit for the property, which would include that project, which we spent several months on. So I'm just a little concerned that as a town, we're dragging things out for something that's relatively simple on an industrial property. That's all I have.
If I could.
Please.
So my understanding of this is the reason for the covering is so that the wrap, the recycled asphalt product, doesn't have a high moisture content. So it does absorb a certain amount of water. That's the reason for covering it. So that will increase the amount of runoff from that area. This isn't a long drawn out thing. This is a peer review engineer that does stormwater. It's a whole separate thing from the soil board. We have a revolving list of 3 peer review engineers, and it would be a next person up on the list, and they would get the letter, and they would send out a comment within the next week or two, and you guys would either disagree or not agree, and the commission resolves it at that point. But under the local bylaw, we have the right to acquire. So,
What's the dimensions of the shed?
Oh, let me see if I have that. I don't know.
it's a little over 10,000 square feet.
It's over 10,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's out back. The property is, the existing building is out back. It's 50 by 54. So we're gonna take part of the building that is out back on the property existing, out towards, if you go way out east towards the silt area, you can see it. Welcome to take you there for a tour. But it is 50 by 54 in dimensions.
Both of them or just one? Because there's 2.
Both, it says 2, so 50 by 54.
Times 2.
Total square acreage, you have 5,400 times 2, yes. 2 buildings, yeah. But again, it's on a paved area, it's an impervious source. Yes, all the materials that we use in hot mix asphalt have a % of moisture. Usually with recycled asphalt pavement, because it's got a bitumen in it, it has a lower % of moisture. So stormwater runoff impacted through the roof or the shed versus, say, a paved surface area, we're not changing that. So.
I just asked the commissioner to follow town council's advice.
Yeah, and the fact that this is being reviewed by town council and EPA, yeah, I'm fine with that.
But we could ask them to agree to the peer review and pick a peer review engineer from the list so that we can get this moving.
Okay.
Can you send us the name of the person you contacted at EPA and a copy of the letter you sent? Is that something I could ask for Chairman Roca?
That, you okay with that?
I would suggest that he file a document request with the clerk, or I could call EPA. when I get back. And that's, I'm gonna be out for 5 days.
And then
I
one
prefer-
final question, if I could ask, just.
Yes.
Just curious, why it went to the EPA instead of Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection?
Because it's their industrial permit, and it's been Keating's continued claim that they are exempt and grandfathered and all of those things. And I'm just asking for that final opinion.
Just-
Yeah.
Well, Chairman Roca, I just think it's interesting or odd that you wouldn't go to the state regulatory agency first, or at least include them in the request.
It's an EPA permit.
And for the record, Rocha.
Thank you. So, to clarify.
Rocha, not Roca.
Oh,
Rocha.
Rocha, sorry.
Yeah,
My apologies.
no problem. So, questions have been answered? Maybe not to your satisfaction, but, okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with following town council's advice,
Is,
not getting in the midst of the lawyers again.
my only question would be, is there NIPD's permit and SWIP plan that they have, could it run concurrent with our bylaw? Like, is it more strict? Is it less strict? Is it?
This isn't about the SWIP, this is about the stormwater review. Their SWIP's on file, it's been accepted by EPA, we have it. Their NIPD's permit is on file, it's been accepted by EPA, we
Right.
have it, but this is a new addition.
But
to
they're
the
gonna need a
project.
stormwater permit, right? And then they're gonna have to submit a SWIP, and you already have it on file, right?
I don't see it changing the SWIP,
All right, so
but that's up to the peer review engineer. You know, this is expertise that none of us have.
we should start gaining it, so we don't have to go sending everything to peer review.
Your bylaw says that it shall be peer reviewed.
And in this case, town council's advising it. and-
Oh, understood, I'm just saying, if, you know,
No,
if they already have a permit that's stricter than what we're asking, then we're just, you know, delaying the project.
I disagree.
Okay.
Anybody else here for this topic? Any further comments or questions from the commission?
I think we should follow the advice of the attorney.
Okay, you want to make that motion?
Sure, I move that we send it for peer review.
Okay. I don't know who's next up on the list, but you'll take whoever's next on the list. You want to make a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further?
GCG is next on the list.
Okay. In favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Now, so if Mr. Hill wants to agree to GCG, that's fine, but he does have the option of asking for one of the other two. So it's GCG Engineering, GAF Engineering, and Beals and Thomas Engineering.
You can put that in writing to Keating and we'll,
I'll send you an email.
very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Next on here, old business, certificate of compliance, Dean J. Francois, 293 Perry Hill Road, file number is SE001-0452. A certificate of compliance was filed by Dean J. Francois for property located at 293 Perry Hill Road, map 8, lot 25B. The applicant placed a two-bedroom trailer on a foundation, installed a septic system, private well, drive, and utilities with filling and grading, as built provided by GAF Engineering, Incorporated, dated March 14 of this year. Review of matters presented, votes may be taken. Is anybody here for this one?
So I wasn't here for the meeting where this got discussed, but I understand there was more information needed and you weren't in favor of issuing the COC.
Until we had the questions answered.
Yeah, so I did talk to Bill Madden today.
Mhm.
He didn't say he was coming here for this today. So you could either deny it for more information or continue it for information for one more meeting.
Okay. So now we had questions about the grading, I think, or the fact
Grading
that
the stock, there's a
there
couple
were
stock
things,
houses.
yeah, and I think the way
And
it was
the gutters
growing
were,
in wasn't
there was gutters that were in the, behind the property.
right.
Yeah, continue, I'll make a motion to continue
until...
For more information,
To the May 24 meeting?
sure.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
All further discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Thank you. New business, you have conversion of land in chapter 61B.
Do you want to do?
Oh, this will go.
I just think it's.
We have
all
a
business.
hiccup tonight, if I could interrupt you for 1 minute.
Yeah, Alan.
Alan's here. We both thought this was on the agenda. It may have got bumped when we were putting this other stuff on the agenda, either by myself or by Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
There's no votes being taken. A presentation was made to the selectmen last night
Right.
by the coalition. That was very well received. The access issues have been resolved, and Alan just needs an opportunity to give you his final follow-up. It's something that, you know, honestly, we didn't expect, but it's not controversial. So I think you have the right to talk about it, and I'd ask that you take it out of order so we can just,
Okay,
he needs to be somewhere else.
I'm fine with that. Any objection by anybody?
No.
Okay. Mr. Decker, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, fellow commission members. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Alan Decker with Buzzards Bay Coalition, and as just a quick refresher, at your last meeting, we were discussing conservation restriction to be placed on some property that is going to be on the town meeting warrant. And the request was made at the end of that discussion that the commission should probably see the conservation restriction as proposed in advance of town meeting to just be familiar with it. So that's been shared with you electronically. I also included that same overview of the conservation restriction that's proposed with the accompanying coverage maps, and I have printed copies of those, again, if that's helpful in this quick discussion about the project for the commission members. I'm happy to hand them up again through the chair if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Thank you.
You got the
So,
black and white version, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea was that you now have color maps. So, so this is the component of this much larger multi-town project that we're doing that we're involved in. We, the coalition, are involved in with the towns of Acushnet, Mattapoisett, Rochester, Fairhaven, and Marion to protect drinking water aquifer lands around the Mattapoisett River Valley for the Mattapoisett River. This conservation restriction encompasses, as you can see from the maps, portions of 80 acres of the property that's in extreme southeastern part of the town on the Mattapoisett town line. It was mentioned that the coalition was here last night speaking with the selectmen, and that went well, as was commented. The selectmen did vote to support this and recommend it at town meeting for the 22nd. The issue before town meeting will be the recommended expenditure of $85,000 of Community Preservation Act funding towards this project, which is a $6 million project in sum. The funding would go into the project. Acushnet will, the town, through the Conservation Commission, hence the reason for being here, co-hold the proposed conservation restriction along with the towns of Fairhaven, Marion, and Mattapoisett over the property that's going to be owned by the coalition long-term for public access, public use. We are going to hold on to it and also enable the continuation of some agriculture that happens on the Mattapoisett part of this property. So I will be bringing back the conservation restriction once it's in final form. At this point, it is a draft. The state review of it hasn't been completed, but I anticipate that soon. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the body of the document now that you've had a chance to see it. But otherwise, as I said, I'll be back with you at a subsequent meeting, likely in very early June.
So the selectman was satisfied that the access issue had been resolved.
Selectmen were satisfied about that. On those maps, it's the parcel, I believe, in blue that is the intervening parcel. We are diligently working towards completing the acquisition of that property. I will be with you on a conservation restriction held by the town Concom on that property as well, perhaps as soon as the same meeting in early June. But yes, they were satisfied.
Yeah, I have no other questions.
Are you guys acquiring the land on the other side of Long Plain Road as well, on the corner of
Yeah.
Wolf Island Road and Long Plain?
Yeah, so I appreciate that question. It is not, it's part of our purchase and sale agreement. That acreage is actually going to be owned by the Mattapoisett Water and Sewer Department. We are going to assign our rights in the purchase and sale agreement to the town of Mattapoisett. So that very last map in your packet, that area in blue there is going to be owned by Mattapoisett. We will co-hold a conservation restriction over that property on the town of Mattapoisett, co-held with the other municipal partners, in this case the town of Rochester, since a portion of it is in Rochester, town of Marion, and the town of Fairhaven.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
pumped.
Great,
Fun.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
Couple of things from the selectmen's meeting.
right.
So the only concern, some residents had contacted Selectman Hinckley, concerned that they were gonna wind up with a parking lot between their houses.
Hmm.
You know, where there's never been a parking lot. And there was a commitment to work on that by the coalition and try and make everybody happy. And the other question I have on the CR, Alan, is, are these reviewed by town council? Should this be reviewed by town council to see that we're accepting the right language and getting it to the right?
That is a question for within.
I'm just, historically, have they been?
Concom. Yeah, that's up to, that's.
It's not gonna cost you any money.
No, and that's not the concern, but that, I'm not able to give you advice about that.
Okay. So I think
That's
it should
certainly
go to,
within your purview.
just to make sure we're not signing up to something, we're committing the town to something we can't do.
And you said DEP right now is reviewing it.
Not DEP, so all conservation restrictions that follow the statutory process, the ones that, the type of CRs that we're involved in,
Right.
are actually reviewed by an arm within Energy and Environmental Affairs
Oh, okay.
called the Division of Conservation Services. So there is a staffer up there that spends her time reviewing all the conservation restrictions to make sure they're properly done in the public interest and follow an accepted template document that the state has already prepared. This does follow that to a large degree. There are always changes to the template based on the particular project, but that's the review that's happening right now. There's also, as part of that, review by EEA attorneys, and then I get back comments, which usually are very minimal and generally, unfortunately, address typos that I didn't catch before I sent it up. But it's not DEP, it's DCS. It's
Yeah, it's public
yet more
conservation. Thank you.
acronyms thrown at us by the government.
Okay.
And you mentioned this is a $5 million project with the town only putting up 80,000.
85.
$6 million project
million.
we're looking for support from, and we're looking for support from CPA through the CPC of
Yeah.
$85,000.
And he did mention to the selectmen, this has been fully funded, the grants have been
Yeah.
awarded, and this is a go. So,
Yep.
I'd be happy to let you know that the other partner towns have all voted at
Yeah.
their town meetings.
Okay, great. Thanks
All
for
right.
the information.
You're very welcome. We will we'll be there at town meeting on the 22nd. Thank you very much. What's that?
Way to tie.
Yeah, of course, of course. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on new business, a conversion of land in Chapter 61B, this is map 8, lots 25, 25E, and 25F. This is Assessor's Lot 2 on Perry Hill Road. Review of matters presented, votes may be taken. What do you know about this?
So this is, and Mark Francois here tonight, he's the owner of the property. These are 2 more house lots that have been sold, but they were in Chapter 61. And I don't think that the town's in the real estate business and buys house lots for retail. And all indications are, I don't think the commissioner would want to buy it either. So he just needs a negative reply from us, and then he can go to the selectmen and they'll wrap it up.
All right. So, you want to
Mark
just add
Francois,
any
yeah.
detail to that?
No, it's just, you gotta go through the first right of refusal,
Mhm.
through the Board of Selectmen. The
Right.
process, it has to go through you, it has to go through the assessors, and then it goes to the selectmen. Basically, it is the last 2 lots that I'm looking to sell, and I have PNSs on them, and it's
So one's already been released?
one's been released.
Okay.
The other one is, there's one on hold, even though I got a PNS on it, that's gonna be held until the project's complete. And then one has been sold, and I have one more that can be sold.
So, and I'll, just to speed this up, the other one on here is, and I'll read it, conversion of land in Chapter 61B, map 8, lots 25, 25E, and 25F. This is Assessor's Lot 3, Perry Hill Road. Review of matters presented, votes may be taken, so we'll be voting on these 2 lots.
One of them is the
And
one.
they're written here.
Right. Well, one of them is the one that you went to and you did your walkthrough a couple of weeks ago. There's one of them.
Okay. So, yeah, we're not gonna buy the land, I'm fine with releasing it, or refusing the right to
Right,
purchase.
right.
Yes. So, I'm gonna make the motion that we refuse the option to purchase.
So moved.
The second?
Second.
Can we say both lots?
Hmm?
Can we say
For both lots, yes.
Both lots.
Yes, we're gonna,
So moved. Both lots.
yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, on the stormwater, so motion to reopen public hearing.
Make motion.
In a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, continue public hearing stormwater amendment to a previously approved stormwater plan. Paul Boucher and Nancy Durfee, 7 Morton Lane, file number is SE001-0566. A request to amend a previously approved stormwater plan was filed by Paul Boucher and Nancy Durfee for property located at 7 Morton Lane, map 14, lots 15H and 17. The applicant requests review of the stormwater management calculations submitted by Haru Engineering, LLC, plan sketch submitted on July 22 of 2022 by Haru Engineering, LLC, topographical as-built plan submitted by Haru Engineering, LLC on March 25 of 2023, topographical plan submitted by applicant, selection of peer review engineer for stormwater approval, review of matters presented, votes may be taken. So where does this stand?
So where we left off months ago was that there would be a topographical plan. If you remember, this was originally assigned to CGE for some peer review, and they said they couldn't do it without the topo. So the commission asked for a topo so that that could be done. So the topo's in, and if the topo is reviewed, it'll determine whether or not stormwater stays on the site or it leaves. And I'm just asking that we complete that process. And that'll be the end of it.
Here is a larger plan of what you have.
So did you want to comment?
Yep, so what I would like the chair to do tonight is entertain a motion to issue an order amended to conditions referencing the title block of that plan. And I would like the commission to second that motion and give us a favorable motion.
So, I don't know, anybody have questions, comments, and I'm not kind of stumped here.
This is what we asked them for. This is what we asked them for.
Right, so we've got the topo plan here, the lines are on, the numbers are on.
I had Joanne dig up the minutes of the past meetings,
Hmm.
and there was a commitment that when the topographical plan came in, that it would go out for peer review.
What aspect of the topo do you think needs to be peer reviewed? Is somebody gonna go down there and check all the elevations and,
No, that's stamped by an engineer that says those are the grades. That's his certification.
right?
So they'll look at his calculations that he presented when he was here, Mr. Haru, on the graph paper. And they needed that topographical plan to show the existing conditions and show whether or not stormwater is exceeding pre-construction levels. And that's what's required. And you're gonna hear the next person go through the same thing.
And I recall stating to you at a previous meeting, I don't remember the date, it's been a few weeks, that the only thing we need to do is guarantee that you're not adding additional runoff, which is what we ask for every project, and I think that review will settle that. But I'm gonna ask you to repeat what you asked us to make a motion.
I asked you to make a motion. I asked to make a motion to amend our order of conditions referencing that plan's title block. And I asked the commission to second that motion and to give us a favorable vote. So I'm looking for an amended order of conditions.
So it sounds like that would be a waiver of going through the peer review.
Would you have any input or comments or questions on this while I'm thinking this through?
That is an as-built plan.
Right.
Regardless of what comes back, if you have a peer review, the stormwater is done, which we didn't have to do. You have check dams, there's 4 check dams, I believe, on that plan. The seed is coming up. We're just about all done. And not to be disrespectful, but your peer review was all done at the very beginning of this project. That is an as-built plan, and nothing's going to change.
It did not go to peer review.
Does it need to, if it's a single family? No?
We've had several wetlands violations out there showing that there is velocity coming off of the project. And on several site visits, you can see that there is rilling along the property. Stormwater is coming off of the property. There's no roof drains installed.
No, the property though, isn't it from another?
In the most recent storm, the road has been completed, the swale completed with the stone, check dams. None of the water after that rain event was coming off the road. It was actually coming from what we believe to be a municipally owned, or not municipally owned, but municipally created drainage swale off a Hathaway Road that cuts off of a paper street, that cuts down to Dolores, which then traverses and dumps out. And we've managed that. We paid for the management of that. and we've completed it. And we didn't have to. Just to remind you, we were deemed exempt from stormwater, so there was no reason to send us to peer review. And we created the as-built for that purpose.
So I actually would point out that our stormwater bylaw says that anything being built in connection with a building permit, that I have the right to ask it to be reviewed for stormwater, and that's what I did. You can do what you want to do, but understand that later on in the agenda, we're being audited for compliance. So this could become a very good point in that compliance audit.
Well, I wasn't gonna go down this road, but to be respectful to this board is not the stormwater board. It's still the planning board according to your bylaw. So you guys really don't have any authority outside of your jurisdiction.
Well, according to a letter from town council on this topic, he said the vote that was taken by this commission and by the planning board actually holds, and we are the authority for this.
But bylaws need to be changed through the process at town meeting.
I agree with that
You agree.
statement of fact, yes.
And that is still a bylaw that I would dispute that, and other attorneys would probably dispute the same thing.
And it's been disputed recently for another project,
Correct.
and it's our town council's feeling that the votes would actually hold up in court, even though the bylaw itself hasn't been changed yet.
Yep.
So I'd just like to kind of touch on that a bit. It did happen, a vote was taken at the planning board meeting under the town planner's report when Doug was still here. There was no public hearing. It was not even on the agenda as an item. So it can't possibly be considered legal. There was never a public hearing. I mean, I do this, I'm sorry, and any changes, even one letter, or has to go before the town to be voted on, and a public hearing has to be held by the planning board to make those changes to your zoning bylaws, or any bylaws that you have that relate to zoning. So I disagree. I do not think that the town appropriately voted that and made you the authority. You may have accepted it, and you actually are doing it, but I don't think you're their authority, not legally. And I would challenge that. I would challenge that.
They can't challenge that here. They need to
Well,
challenge that.
I'm challenging it to you right now, and I would challenge you to challenge that to your legal counsel as to how it was really taken and how the measures were voted on. Under a town planner's report is just similar to what you get from your agent, and it's not, it's me reporting out items, or he's reporting out items of interest, but no votes are taken on that are legally binding.
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion. Why don't we have Joanne transcribe what they have said, and we'll send that to town council, and he can give the commission a fresh opinion on whether or not that authority was officially transferred, because it was. And the way it's been explained to me by town council is that the planning board remains the authority, but they delegated the authority to the commission. And the commission holds that authority until the planning board either wants to take it back, or, like the bylaw was going to change, it becomes the commission. But until that's done, it is still the planning board's designation, but they transferred that authority. I can't tell you about whether it was posted properly. Those are all legal opinions, and this belongs to legal counsel. It's not going to cost them any money. It can be done by the next meeting, and we could just be done with it. Otherwise, we could saw sawdust for quite some time.
And I'm guessing that's probably why Jeff Blake said what he said.
He did it. It was already challenged at two other projects, and the opinion each time has been review and stormwater permit.
But being the subject of stormwater, we're exempt from stormwater. Now, it was funny, I sent KP Law an email on Monday, August 29th of '22.
Mm.
On that Friday, that week, 4 days after the email, is when I got my first cease and desist. And it's been nothing but a crapshoot ever since. My wife and I feel that we're being harassed by your agent. So that's why I'm here tonight asking for a motion for amended order of conditions referencing that plan's title block. Hopefully the commission would second it and we would be done with this. Because we're all done with peer review. I do not trust any engineer that our plan would go to. Because I do not trust your agent. So,
We're getting into personnel matters now.
No, it doesn't. I'm talking to the chair.
I'd ask you to be very careful there.
Mhm.
so tonight is the last night we're gonna be here. You wanna send that out to peer review, it's on your dime, because we are not paying, to be respectful, but we're done. This has been a long road. We were ready to do this months ago, and we're held up. The road is done. I've got my termination letter from EPA, so we no longer have a NIPD's permit,
There's no SWIP plan.
no SWIP plan, we're done.
Interesting.
And an occupancy permit?
Yes, we do. Grass is growing. Hopefully, a couple, 3 months, we'll be 100% done. Invite the commission to come down, take a look, and issue the COC.
I still keep coming back to the fact that this is less than 40,000 square feet.
Yeah, it's 31,000, it's way under.
We talked about that.
And this project started off on the wrong foot, which we didn't catch a lot of it. And the more we looked into things, the more things changed. And it dragged on. And here we are. I can guarantee you those elevations did not change no more than 6 inches, if that.
I'm guessing nobody else here is here for this topic. No, you're not, you're not. Any other thoughts on this?
So we asked from them, and that's what they brought us.
Right.
But if you review your minutes, you'll see that there was a commitment for it to go to peer review.
Was that commitment based on the fact that that commitment was made before we came to the conclusion that this was less than 40,000 square feet?
But it's not exempt. Because it required a building permit, they still have to demonstrate that they can comply with it, but they may not necessarily have to pay for the permit.
Well, Mr. Chair, we're way beyond that.
We're built, we're in.
We're
That
beyond,
was-
we're
that's-
beyond going for a building. If I was applying for a building permit today,
Mhm.
then I would agree with Mr. Hannon.
No, this was in place before you applied for your building.
Well-
But I'm not gonna argue with this all night.
Well, I'm not arguing either. I just asked the commission to either make a motion and accept it and approve it. If they deny it, then we'll be out of here. But we're not coming back.
No, I can't make motions, so I'm gonna leave it up.
They've been issued an occupancy permit by the building inspector, correct?
Even though the house wasn't complete.
Oh, the house is complete. I've got the building, we moved in December 19th. Occupancy permit in hand. So the house was 100% when we moved in. Outside wasn't done, but the inside was.
Because we still had a cease and desist. We
So,
could not touch the outside. In fact, we could not touch the outside until after January, I think, even February. And by then, it was too late. There's no way we could bring a piece of equipment out. I think you saw that yourselves. So
So what's been done, so just for the record then, so after we lifted the cease and desist, what were you
It's
able
loom
to do?
seeded, flower beds are in, we're doing a pea stone sidewalk, that's about 85% done. I got maybe 30 feet left to do.
The roadway is done, the swale is done, all the check
Road's
dams, extra check. It's working based on the last rain event. It was working as we had expected it would. After the site contractor came back and did the extra work.
But there is a lot of water, excuse me, there is a lot of water coming off of Hathaway Road, coming in behind the houses on Morton Lane, and it cuts right through, comes out on Dolores Ave, where I made the hammerhead turnaround,
Mhm.
and it catches the swale and goes. That last rain event we had, the road was bone dry, and the swale was flowing water all coming from the back. So that's all town water coming off of Hathaway Road, which, you know what, I'm not complaining. It is what it is, but don't make it my responsibility to manage water that was done, diverted that way years ago.
And I think we already have managed to manage that water. So there's paper streets between Renee and Morton Lane, and that paper street has a 3-foot deep swale, just dug out swale, where the water drains down through, cuts through Dolores, right out onto Morton Lane at the corner. But we have started the swale. I started it further around the corner of Dolores so that we could capture that water and make sure that it was draining right into the swale as we had hoped it would.
There's still a small pond out there right now from that last rain.
Yeah, it's strange that Rainy Street doesn't have any storm drains. So that must be where it's part of where it's going. All right, any final comments or questions before we, so. I'll support our motion if you make it.
This is a single-family dwelling, less than 40,000 square feet. The topo has been submitted by a stamped engineer. I'll make a motion to accept it.
To accept it as an amended order of condition.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to say the number?
Hmm?
Did they want the number of the?
What do you mean, the file number?
No,
You
just.
gotta reference the block, the as-built and the date on the plan.
Is it this down here then?
I believe so.
You're asking a question of a non-engineer here.
So yes, it would be the topographic
March,
and then the date.
March 25th.
Topographic.
submitted on July 22nd.
22052, does that have anything to do with it?
That's just probably us as our contract number with the engineer.
Okay. So there's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
No.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstaining?
Abstain.
Okay. All right, that's 3-1. Okay. Motion to close the hearing?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
We really
moved.
appreciate
Okay.
it.
Second?
Second.
Good luck to you all. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for everything. We appreciate it.
Not fun. Okay, motion to reopen the public hearing for
I will make a
Costello.
motion to
And a
reopen
second.
the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this one won't be open long. Continued public hearing, stormwater, Shazaz Costello, Park Drive and Deep Brook Drive, map 17, lots 66 through 84, map 18, lots 12R, 12S, 18, 18G. Stormwater permit application has been filed by Shazaz Costello for property located at Park Drive and Deep Brook Drive, map 17, lots 66 through 84, map 18, lots 12R, 12S, 18, 18G, Acushnet, Mass. The applicant proposes to construct approximately 2,350 foot of roadway with associated drainage and utility systems to serve a 15-lot residential subdivision. The applicant is represented by Jamie Bisson, head of Zenith Zenith Consulting Engineers LLC. Plan name is Deep Brook Estates, dated October 24th, 2017. The other comment here is peer review comment still ongoing at this time. This hearing is continued for more information. And do you want to elaborate on just the fact that there was a peer review done?
There was initial peer review
Zenith has
done.
had some time to respond,
Yes.
and there's still,
And the answers to Zenith's response came out 2 days ago from Beals and Thomas. I had originally thought that it would be best if Beals and Thomas and Zenith met at this meeting, but based on the fact that only some minor issues were corrected, but they have reached agreements on some things, we're headed in the right direction. There's still some larger issues at stake, and Beals and Thomas mentioned that they've asked for the same information twice, and they haven't received it. So I sent an email today that I think that you saw, requesting that we try and speed this up, and at the next meeting, either have a meeting of the minds between the two engineers, or they're gonna have to fight it out in front of the commission. But it made no sense to have them come here tonight and spend hours going back and forth on these comments. It will be a long meeting if we have to do that. And I don't wanna put the engineers in a position of dueling engineers on TV. I had originally gotten a message from Beals and Thomas that they were going to have a telephone call to discuss the comments from Zenith. So I sent a message that I wanted to be on that call. It didn't make any sense for me to not be on that call and give my comments to their comments. And that was quickly canceled by Zenith. They told Beals and Thomas they didn't want me on the call. So I didn't get to see it until, it all came in. And there still are, they can't meet the 10-year storm. They don't meet the 2-year storm requirements for stormwater coming off. And some of the basins are in groundwater, I believe, was one of the comments, and that, that would have to be changed. But in talking to professionals that are on some of our boards that are professional engineers in town, and talking to our peer review engineer, and they've asked for a waiver, and then I explained to the chairman today that the bylaw doesn't allow for waivers. And unless it allows for a waiver, we can't issue one, but it does allow for a variance. And the variance would be after a stormwater review and comments from everybody, and they would have to submit their request for variance in writing and the reasons for why they want it. So I think that's where we're gonna get down to. And I've pushed Beals and Thomas in the email, and I'll give Zenith, the same email tonight or tomorrow morning. There's an important department head meeting tomorrow morning, so I'm gonna come in for that, and then I'm gonna leave for my flight day. So I'll take care of that before I leave.
Yeah, because otherwise, if they do all that here, Joanne's minutes, would probably just say engineers, long discussion.
Disagreed.
Yeah.
But
I would rather have that get
it's
done
not appropriate
behind
for-
the scenes,
Yeah.
not here, not on television.
But I did like when Bill came in and gave the explanation of his peer review for Navison. I thought that was more informative to the commission than anything I could give, because he's the expert. So going forward, it's my intent to have when the peer review is final, to have both engineers come in and say we agreed, or we didn't agree, and this is the one thing we don't agree on, and you're the arbitrators of that.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
So you need to continue this for more information.
Right, you think till the 24th is adequate?
I would,
We'll try it
Beals and
then,
Thomas turned around
and
that.
if they're not ready, we'll.
Yeah, but they turned around that 169 pages in a matter of days. But it's how quickly Zenith responds, and if they really send them this information they've been waiting for since our first request for peer review.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to continue till May 24th for more information.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's continued, thank you. And next we have public so a motion to open a public hearing, please.
I'll make a motion to open.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Public hearing of Stormwater Deterra Development LLC, Bradford Street, map 15, lot 482. Stormwater permit application has been filed by Deterra Development for property located at Bradford Street, map 15, lot 482. The project description is for 4 new single-family dwellings on a private way, in parentheses, Bradford Street, with a stormwater drainage basin. Stormwater drainage basin accounts for 3 previously built single-family dwellings and Bradford Street roadway improvements. The applicant is represented by Jamie Bissonette of Zenith Consulting Engineers LLC. Plan name is Stormwater Permit Plan, dated March 8, 2023. Review of matters presented, votes may be taken. Somebody here for this? I guess Mr. Terra, if you would.
Jeff, okay if I give him the background on our meeting first?
Sure.
So Jeff came into the office and met with me on Monday, and we talked about this, and I knew that he was seeking a waiver. And we went over the bylaw, he understood it, he understands the ability to ask for a variance. And when we met, we talked about that this wasn't as big as a deal as some of engineers and maybe some of the meetings he's heard, $80,000 prices and all these things. When we were there, I believe you agreed to go through the peer review. And if you need a variance, seek the variance and just go from there. And we agreed this is probably a $3,000 or $4,000 adventure to go through this. This is a very straightforward project. So I think Jeff's here to talk to you about it.
Okay, please.
Yeah, so originally I was here.
For the record, we need your name.
Jeff DeTerra from
Thank you.
DeTerra Development, so I really just didn't understand it all. And, you know, obviously you guys saw what we're trying to do over there. And, you know, it's a good thing, and cleaning up the junkyard and so on and so forth. So you know, I'm just trying to keep the cost to a minimum to try to be able to get out of this project without, you know, going upside down. So that's all. I mean, me and Pat talked about a peer review. And then I guess maybe some variances from there on out. Maybe I really don't, you know, I'm still, I mean, yeah, and it says you shall have a peer review, so I guess I'm, you know, I mean, I really don't have much of a choice, you know.
So is the stormwater permit application in?
Yes. He's paid the fee, he's done all of that.
Okay.
I think that GCG may be doing the Keating thing.
Right.
So Beals and Thomas has set up on some pretty big stuff, and I'd recommend GAF if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done plenty of local projects.
Yeah.
And actually, he did a really good job at Navison. He's been going there. We'll get to that. But, he did. I was really happy with the way he handled that. He's like the gentle giant. So
Yeah, I've seen him a few times.
you don't use him, right? Okay, so there's no conflict.
So we don't really need to vote on anything, do we, other than?
He just needs to agree that GAF will be his peer review engineer, and we'll get an estimate on his work, and we'll move forward from there.
Okay, yeah. And I'm sure you were glad to hear that there was nothing regarding $80,000 involved in this.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, well, I don't really know. I mean,
Yeah. I know that.
I guess the things we talked about was an escrow account with the town for money. I don't know
For
how
the basin.
For the basin.
But it's based on the size of the basin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you don't have multiple floor bays and grass lined swales and all these things to maintain 4 times a year.
Yeah. So, because it's 20 years, right? Is that correct? It's like a 20-year.
It's 20 years. Is the town accepting the road?
They should be, yeah.
Yeah. So the only question out there right now in talking to the selectmen is whether or not the town should be, when they accept these roads, whether they should be accepting the stormwater controls, because they don't have the equipment and the finances to pick up that expense. A contractor builds the houses, sells the houses, and you know, leaves behind not just fixing the road and plowing it over 20 years, but maintaining all of that, stormwater reports, and what's been happening. I think Mark's still here. Mark Francois formed a homeowners association, and it becomes a responsibility of the homeowners association to pick up that maintenance. So it's not something you're going to own in perpetuity. It may ding you a little bit on lot cost or something, but
Yeah.
that's the best way out.
So now what happens, just a question, after 20 years? When
So that-
money comes back, now who takes care of it?
So EPA's feeling is that in 20 years, the basins and some of the BMPs may need to be replaced. And that's what, the money is for. But it doesn't say you have to put up for another 20 years.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
a lot of cities and towns don't have the money to do these things. contractors failed to leave rights of way to the stormwater controls when they did their layouts and deeds. And the town residents say, no, you're not coming to my yard. So it gets a little sticky.
Yeah.
But the homeowners association is the best way. And I don't think that, Mark, did you have to fund your entire thing, or was it as you sold the lots?
As you sold the lots.
Yeah, so as you sell the lots, you would have to put up that money.
Well, I have 3 that are sold, so I really can't do much
Well, then
with
you're
that
flush.
at this point, you know what I mean? So, yeah, so it'd have to be on the other 4, I guess.
Yes.
And it's really only 3 lots. There's another house being built, but it's just a trailer coming down and being replaced with a house, so it's already an existing lot, you know?
And that was my recommendation the other day when we talked, that it just be those 3. So,
Exactly.
all right.
Okay.
Okay. So, I don't know if, so there's no motion to make, I mean, you're gonna.
No, I would like.
It's going to peer review, he's accepted GAF, and that's the record, and
Peer review.
Mhm.
So in terms of,
so that'll go out, I'm gonna be here a little bit tomorrow, that'll go out tomorrow, and I'll have Bill Madden send the estimate to Joanne, and Joanne can send the estimate to you. You drop off the check for the estimate, the peer review starts. I don't see this taking more than a couple of weeks,
Okay.
and you would have to have Zenith respond to that. And if you could get them to do that in a timely manner. And they're allowed to talk to each other. They don't need to wait to talk to us. They
Okay.
just, GF can't talk to you. He can only talk to them.
Okay,
So
not a problem.
I think it'll be fine.
Yep.
so in terms of this public hearing, are we just gonna close it?
Continue.
We're gonna continue the public hearing until the peer review results come back.
Okay, so,
Motion to continue.
until those results come back.
Yeah, and-
For further information.
Yeah, and we realize the procedure issue in this, Joanne and I were talking about it. We should advertise the public hearing for stormwater after peer review comes back. These shouldn't be initial public hearings when the information's coming in, we're picking peer review engineers, because residents would show up,
And then,
and there's nothing for them to say, nothing for them to understand.
right,
And it just seems like a much smoother transition.
that works for me. Okay, so we have a motion, did we have a second?
I motioned.
So, all right, all in favor of continuing?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank
And
you.
this is as fast as you drop off the, as fast as he gets the estimate and you drop off the check.
No problem.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Zero. Okay, that's it for the hearing part of things. On to the discussion agenda. First one, grievance, senior clerk. So the town refused to pay for authorized overtime worked.
So we're really getting done for now. There's the grievance that Joanne had to file. So the commission offered, actually voted, to have Joanne work 3 hours of overtime a week, that the money would be paid from the Wetlands Protection Act. And if you remember, you voted quite a while ago to give her a $75 stipend to do that. And the reply back from the assistant treasurer, collector, and town administrator was it had to be overtime. So we couldn't just give her $75 for working the same amount of hours. So we've accommodated that, and we came up with a plan for overtime, not from taxation, not from the budget, but from Wetlands Protection Act. I had Joanne work an hour and a half or an hour of overtime 2 weeks ago to do some minutes and finish up. What else, Joanne? You had something?
Eric DeBarros' research.
Yeah, Eric DeBarros' Freedom of Information Act request. And when the time cards went in, we got Joanne got an email from the assistant treasurer collector that she wasn't being paid the overtime because Joanne didn't have it approved by Jamie Kelly. So I jumped in and said, Joanne doesn't get overtime approved by Jamie Kelly. I'm the department head. That's my decision, and that's been my decision since I've had this job.
And voted on by the commission.
And voted on by the commission, yes. So they totally weren't gonna pay for it. So I went a step further and this week said in an email to Carla Morrow that if you don't pay Joanne's overtime in this pay period, that I would file an unfair labor practice against her, Jamie Kelly, and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Because this could be resolved by the chairman of the Board of Selectmen too. No one is willing to get involved in this. And this is why the doors are revolving in this town. And when this happened, the first email came out about not paying her an hour of overtime. This took 3 departments down for the entire day because they've resorted to changing the employees' time cards. A memo came out that you had to be at your desk at 8 o'clock, ready to work, not punching in at 8 o'clock. And that if you were punching in early, and the email said, you're stealing from the town. And it was to another employee, not to Joanne. And that's a very strong word to be used. So Joanne and the other employee punched in, let's say, at 7:57. And they had 3 minutes to go upstairs and get at their desk and be in compliance with the memo. Their time cards were altered to read 8 o'clock. They took the 3 minutes off. And for me, that could be used 2 or 3 months later, if you don't like Joanne or the other employee, to say, we have a memo out here that says you need to be at your desk ready for work at 8 o'clock, and you're not doing that. You're getting here at 8 o'clock. And when they changed the time clock punches, they can't see their original times. I mean, they were altering the time card. So that blew up and turned into the exchange back and forth. So 15 minutes after I sent I'm going to file a labor relations complaint, an email came out to Joanne, we're going to pay you your overtime, but we reserve our rights to take the money back. It's beyond ridiculous. We're burning dollars to save pennies in time in our departments. The same thing's going on at the DPW, the Board of Health, Conservation Commission, Assessor's Office. It's like we have time card police all of a sudden. So after that letter about the labor complaint, a memo came out, we're done with the 7-minute rule, we're going back to doing what we were doing. If the time clocks are outdated and don't work properly, let's invest money in a real system that people can punch in and not be accused of doing things that they're not doing. And if this continued, we could have a new town administrator come in and look at Joanne's time cards and say, you're in violation, we're gonna write you up.
Yeah.
33 years, the lady's never been written up.
Mhm.
I can set my watch by Joanne showing up for work. So,
And in 18 months, we are gonna have a new town administrator.
yes, we are. But basically, we have an interim town manager at this point, because he's done it.
He's getting paid than any town administrator's ever been paid before in this town.
Yes, he is.
He's
Yes.
never been a town administrator.
And he doesn't call us back, he doesn't answer emails. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Tanya calls us and says, Jamie would like to talk to you, and Jamie's standing right there. He doesn't even dial the phone. And it's just, it's asinine. So I keep bouncing back to our collective bargaining agreement, and it's my only standpoint at this point is you aren't allowed to change anything in my job description. So they can't tell me that I can't approve Joanne's overtime, because that's been my job for 2 years. And until we have a collective bargaining agreement that says that I don't have that authority anymore, I have that authority. And it's a violation of state law to change anything until we have a collective bargaining agreement.
The other thing that's nuts about this is that it's not taxation money.
No,
So I don't know why there's even any.
we should just stop
any
charging for
hesitation.
NOIs if we're not gonna use the
Yeah,
money.
There shouldn't be any hesitation to pay you.
No. And originally, her PAF was signed for the $75. It's just a, and the whole senior clerk thing, they decided to elevate every clerk in the building to senior clerk and give them significant raises. She got nothing. Her actions got everybody else a raise, except for her.
So,
Yeah.
and I know there was some other efforts being made, so we'll keep our fingers crossed that that works.
Yep.
And think, yeah, okay. So thanks for the.
And I've jumped into the AFSCME union as well, because AFSCME wrote back to Joanne and said, you have to contact Jamie Kelly if you want to work overtime. So I wrote to AFSCME and said, you can't change my authority. I'm Joanne's supervisor, and I will direct her to work overtime. And they told her not to. So it's just really getting uglier and uglier and uglier.
Yeah.
And production goes down as tempers go up.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's the
Wasting
thing.
people's time.
She's-
Residents are calling us, asking if she got a raise. Did that lady get a raise? I'm serious. They just, even the public can't believe it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you are now known as that lady.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thanks for that update. It's unfortunate that's the update that you have to give us.
Yep.
So next one, Manchester Lane, map 11, lot 33H. Wetlands violation, owner requested to attend.
Are you from Manchester Lane?
No.
Okay.
Commercial landscape debris in the wetlands, review of matters presented, votes may be taken.
So I was disappointed that he didn't come to the last meeting. So I called him. He did call me back, and he explained to me that he couldn't come to the meeting because he has things to do. And I explained that we were trying to be extremely nice and understanding here and give him an opportunity. And he told me that he had moved some of it out. So I went there yesterday. He moved it, but he moved it over in front of the pile further down. And now I see a large amount of black trash bags. I don't know if he's collecting, bag rubbish for a fee, but there's probably 50 bags of trash piled up behind his building back there now. He doesn't live there. I told him that, this was as nice as it was gonna be, and he wasn't gonna like, the other half of it. So,
Is all this getting photo documented?
yeah, yep. I go out every day and take progress photos. So I'm gonna send him an enforcement order.
Didn't we give him 90 days?
No, we wanted him to come in, and we were gonna give him 60 to 90 days to do it. We didn't tell him, you didn't show up to our meeting, and we gave you 60 days. But unfortunately, we don't have the minutes for you to read because Joanne is not allowed to, but you do remember that, Joanne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't pick up the certified letter.
Yeah, he didn't pick up a
Letters that we
certified
sent
letter.
that have been returned.
And looking at it, it's a significant amount of stuff, and if he doesn't have a place to bring it for free, it's gonna cost him some money, but he got paid to take it there. It's not just his own, this is a commercial operation in a residential zone, and this came from the assessor's office saying, we want you to investigate this. We think he's either living there or running a business from that location. So the building commissioner is involved in it, the Board of Health's involved in it now because of the trash. And it's just growing into something that could wind up on our agenda for a really long time, and I'd like to nip it in the bud. He's had 2 opportunities to come here in a month. So,
All right, so I'm sure this will be on the agenda again.
it'll be on
in
the
a couple of
next week, we'll have an agenda,
weeks.
an enforcement order ratified,
Okay.
or not ratified, whichever you.
Any questions, comments on this topic? Lake Street Ponds update, NOI number, file number SE001-0514. Review of matters presented, votes may be taken.
So, it seems like there's still a lot of stuff going on down there. And I received a call from Chairman Wonar asking about some plants, decorative plants or things to be planted in the parking lot. I explained it's in buffer zone to the lake. It has to be natural species. They can't be invasive species. They need to be a plan to manage it all. And they're doing a good job, but they're really getting ahead of themselves trying to get it done. And I did go there yesterday and tell Dan, you need to cool your jets. I don't care who tells you to do more. You only have permission to do what was under 514.
Do we have a plan for that?
In the office, yeah. Yeah.
I want to see the plan, I've been asking.
Yeah, so the original notice of intent allowed for the stones to be placed along the side of the road in the water. But it said clearly you can only put up to 5,000 feet. Other than that, you need a 401 water quality cert. The 401 water quality cert didn't happen. And then the NOI did say that the sidewalks inside the garage, the guardrail would be bituminous concrete, they would be asphalt.
What about the boat ramp?
The boat ramp was approved, but not the kayak wood chip ramp at the other end of the property. I saw that going in on the day they were doing it, and I told them to stop, and in fact, one of the members of the Lake Street Committee said the water's not even deep enough there to launch a kayak. You know, you're wasting your time. So I suggested to Dan that he stop right there and make some kind of stabilization for the dirt where people were launching their stuff. But when I watched the Lake Street Committee meeting, and I would maybe encourage you, some of you to watch it.
Didn't know there was such a thing.
They met for the first time in 18 months. So it was a very good meeting, they had some very good ideas, but they don't have permission to do it. So I'd like to ask the Lake Street Committee to come in and talk to the commission and get on track with their future plans and wishes and desires.
Is this committee just municipal people, or is it like residents too?
It's residents.
Okay.
The one fellow's a civil engineer, Scott Daggett. He's an avid fisherman and has fished there for, you know, many moons and is passionate about the pond. He's very involved.
Excuse me.
And then Acushnet policeman is on the commission, and several other residents, and Dave Womack.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
That's my question.
And there's also gonna be a weed abatement coming up for the 3 ponds. My recommendation was that they do 1 pond and see if it works, rather than try and spread $35,000 over all of those ponds,
Yeah.
because it may not be
And
successful.
is this the milfoil? Or whatever
I
that
can't,
weed is?
I've seen milfoil, but it's a carpet
Yeah.
of milfoil.
Okay.
I mean, it's bad. And my other suggestion is, there's a sign there that says the water's polluted. It is not polluted. So I've seen the water test from the company that's, you know, proposing to do that. And when I went there today to talk to Dan Renat again, I mentioned to him that the polluted water sign is just a really bad look for the town. And if the water's not polluted, let's take the sign down. It doesn't say that we're giving permission for people to fish, to swim. But people would like to wade and fish. And they should be able to. So we'll see what they do. And I have thought about asking the Board of Health to, you know, do another test, just to back that up. But Dan said he had it tested 2 years ago, and it came back fine.
So was that so-called designation because of goose waste or runoff from
No,
neighboring properties?
I think it was runoff from neighboring properties, but I also think that it was let's lower the nuisance of having people swimming and having to do weekly testing.
No.
So if you open it as a public bathing area, it would need to be tested weekly. And I think this was, just put up a sign and we'll be done. But if we're gonna do all this work and make it look nice, I just think that polluted water sign is a bad sign for the town of Acushnet.
Well, if the next test comes in clear, take
Ask them to take it down.
Yeah. So what, you know, off the top of your head, what parts of what was proposed in that NOI are either done or getting done, or how much is left?
Guardrails are in, came in from stock.
Mm-hmm.
They're laying along the road. They were being put up today.
Okay.
Something that was done that wasn't approved is an island was built in the middle of the parking lot where the boat ramp is. And they did that because kids are going in there and doing donuts in their pickup trucks and ripping up all the new stone that's been put in. My suggestion on day one was to put 2 posts at the entrance and put a chain across it, open it in the morning and close it at dusk. We had a swimming beach and recreation area in Uxbridge when I was the chairman of the Conservation Commission, and we took turns. I would go by at 6:30 in the morning and unlock the gate on my way to work. And another commissioner that lived 2 streets away would go by at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night and lock the gate. And we stopped having vandalism at our bathhouse, and our beach chairs were no longer found out in the middle of the pond and all of those things. And no one would be able to go in and damage the property. So Dan likes the idea, but they don't know, you know, who would go by and do that. And maybe that's something.
Sounds like you just volunteered.
I'm not here at 6:30 in the morning, buddy. But Rick drives by every day. So, but maybe a Lake Street volunteer would offer to do it. Or maybe even, you know, our public safety people, I know that they've got a lot to do, but it really wasn't a big commitment. I enjoyed doing it. I got to go down and make sure everything was okay, and so. And I did ask them to install some handicap parking spaces. There were no handicap parking spaces. There should be a portable toilet there. And whatever you bring in for trash, you need to bring with you.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we leave trash barrels there, people are gonna bring their trash and put them in the barrels. But it has also started to attract a new crowd of people since it got fixed up. And they're, you know, parking in the tree line at night and drinking and partying and stuff, and that was one of the reasons they were gonna close some of that off. But putting a chain across it would be the answer.
Okay.
But we will see an NOI in the next couple of weeks for the weed abatement.
In terms of, so, in terms of things that are being proposed, that are being done, that are not part of this, sounds like you've encouraged, or
I've asked them to
encouraged Jay to
stop,
stop. But is it a long list of things that's getting done?
it just grows every week. There's a desire to, and I don't want to overstate it, but there's a desire to turn it into Wally World. You know, they want to have food trucks, they want to have, you know, all these things there, and if you could watch the meeting, you'd see it's just growing and growing and growing. And some people have complained already that it's a little over-improved, and they kind of liked it the way it was. The sidewalks look fantastic. It's safe, you can fish with your kids, you know, the entire length of the pond. But do we really want to?
So it sounds like we've got to keep an eye on what's other work that's getting done that's not in this.
Keep an eye on it, and maybe even ask them to file something after the fact for the island, just to slow them down a little bit.
All right, I'll drive by again sometime soon. Anybody else with comments, questions about this?
So what was approved was basically what you saw 2 weeks ago.
I want to see the plans. That's what I want to see.
Are they available electronically?
We can scan them in. We have a new plotter in the building, so we can scan that plan in and send it up. But I think the full-size plan, we can get the full-size plan for the next meeting, or you could stop by and pick it up, Ryan, and bring it back.
Yeah, I just want to see it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you might stop by the office then and get it?
Yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you. Next one, request for stormwater waivers.
And I only put that in because this is becoming a popular event right now. And I think people have watched our meetings and decided that if some people are gonna not go through the process, I'm gonna tell the same story and ask for the same things. Keating was asking for waivers from the soil board from the requirements of the new soil bylaw. And Selectman Gaspar asked Keating's counsel to give the town the legal reasons and basis on how they could issue waivers from the soil bylaw. And he said, I can't think of any right now, but for the next meeting, I'll have that. And the next meeting was a month later, and they asked, he said, I haven't found anything, but I'm gonna. So Dave DeRoche got up to the microphone and said, look, I did research on this, and unless the regulation or the bylaw says that waivers can be issued, and there's a process for it, you can't issue waivers. And our town council has agreed. And I understand that and Keating has asked us for some waivers for things that aren't possible for them to do. So one of the conditions in the soil bylaw, and it's been there since its origin, it's not something that we modified, but says at the end of the day, you have to cave in the slope and make it a 3-1 slope. Well, you can't do that with a quarry that's 200 feet deep. So that's something that isn't practical for them. So in talking to council and Selectman Gaspar, they are going to amend the soil bylaw for town meeting to to allow for the soil board to issue waivers, but, in specific instances and in a specific process.
Mhm.
So that is happening. So if you want to put waivers, if you want to issue waivers, they just need to be in the bylaw. And that's something to consider going
But
forward.
in the meantime.
But in the meantime,
possibility of variance.
we allow variances, yes, but under a procedure.
Mhm.
They can't just come in and say, I want a variance that says I can have one. And we will see that.
Any other questions, comments about that one?
No.
The next one, open meeting violation, review of matters presented, votes may be taken.
So I'm gonna ask you to do that, Dan, because I can't stay for that. I'm the one who made the open meeting complaint. I can't participate in that. You guys have to discuss it and decide what you're gonna do.
Okay.
What open meeting?
So, you don't even know? They didn't,
I haven't
you haven't received
seen
it?
anything, I haven't had anything sent to me.
Push it to the next meeting, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask that you push that to the next meeting.
Okay. On to updates from you, starting with MS4 audit.
Yes, so, in talking to EPA about the industrial permit, a new violation at 550 Main Street with Navasun. The issue came up of our annual report for last year didn't get signed. And if the annual
Who would
report,
normally sign that?
well, normally the town administrator signed it.
Okay.
So I sent that email out, and maybe I'll get that out to the commission, telling Mr. Kelly that the report was ready, and it needed to be filed the next day. Did he want to sign it? Did he want me to sign it? Or did he want Chairman Rocha to sign it? And there's been crickets on that. No answer. So when I called Kevin McHugh at Conoco and said, this didn't get signed, but I submitted it, he said, it's as good as not submitted. It was failed to be signed. So EPA is interested in coming in here and doing an audit of our MS4 and stormwater approvals. So they're gonna go through our records.
Hmm.
And that's why I said that maybe, that may matter later on.
Right.
But I did talk to them about the fact that in our NIPD's permit, so the town has its own NIPD's permit that's part of our MS4. And in that, there's a responsible party. And when I took this position, I agreed to be the responsible party. So I am responsible for the town being in compliance. And that was part of my reluctance in even talking to EPA about this. And they pretty quickly said, we're not in the habit of penalizing responsible parties for omissions by a town or volunteers. And they also said that they're not in the business of giving penalties to towns and cities, for this compliance, unless it just really turns into a situation where you're just going to be non-compliant.
Mhm.
So this is a look under the hood. This is not a penalty for the town. It's just to get everybody informed and have you get it from the horse's mouth, directly from EPA of you need to follow the bylaw, you need to follow the regulation and go from there. The same thing with DEP. I had called, as you know, Andrew Poyant when I was having issues at Morton Lane, that they were saying they're exempt and I'm saying they're not. And if you remember, I offered to those folks to have Andrew Poyant come out and give an advisory opinion, not an enforcement opinion. He's not an enforcement person. And they said they didn't want him on their property. So I feel like the commission's kind of failing to uphold the Wetlands Protection Act. I feel like the commission's not upholding the Wetlands Protection Act. And I feel that, I know from having been on a commission and having to enforce things in the town that I lived in, that it's very hard to tell people, you can't throw those sticks over your banking. You installed an above ground swimming pool, and I know you want to sell your house tomorrow, but you can't have that COC. These are not earth-shattering things. But it does get very hard, and I had to shop in the next town over. We would get accosted in the supermarket the day before Thanksgiving, and it kind of ruins your holiday when somebody does that to you. So, I'd like Andrew point, and this is not an enforcement thing. This is an advisory thing to give you folks the advice on what you really need to do, and how some of these things are black and white, and there is no wiggle room on it. We are having flooding in town. You don't know a fraction of the complaints that we get and the things that we resolve without having to come to the commission. And it's a lot. And with this first solar field doing all the work they did, it brought out a lot of stuff. And it is happening. And looking into it and talking to EPA, these were all major watersheds. And I had to do a little work on watersheds because I've never really given that much consideration. And we're deforesting large plots of land in our town that are significant watersheds, and that's what's giving our infiltration and our storm flows and all of those reliefs. And it's very dangerous that we're really not taking that hard line as a commission and looking into cutting down 70 acres of trees to do this, and what's the real effects. And the peer review for the older approved solar fields went through a peer review, but they went through a peer review like that much. There were 2 comments. And you see the comments that come back, and even from GAF and Beals and Thomas, and I'm sure you'll see it from GCG. They took a deeper dive, and when I called that peer review engineer, he told me that they subbed it out to another engineer, and when I called that engineer, they subbed it out to somebody else. So we're going to be clearing, Deep Brook is 68 acres, maybe not being all cleared, but a 68-acre project. Park Drive is a 7 megawatt solar field. It's marked left 70-something acres, maybe 80. And then Morse's Lane, adjacent to that, all 3 of these projects that butt each other, is another 70 acres. And we're gonna wipe out 200 acres of a major watershed in a part of town that has the worst soils and the least infiltration. And the infiltration problem is the problem at Deep Brook. And the 10-year storm is to prevent downstream flooding. It's not to prevent flooding on that project. It's to protect the people downstream. And it was, the words unconscionable were used from engineers telling me that people wanted a waiver from the 10-year storm. So I really want the commission to pay really strict attention to this. It shouldn't matter whose project it is. It shouldn't matter if they've invested money and they're gonna lose money. These things were approved back in 2016 and even earlier than that. And regulations changed a lot after Deep Brook was approved way back in the day. And it's an issue. And these storms are more and more frequent. We had a 1-inch storm, and I got a call. Well, I'm gonna wait till we get, I don't wanna jump ahead of that. So that's my anxiety on why EPA is coming in and DEP is coming in.
Okay.
It's to give everybody the right advice and not let consultants tell you that they're exempt when they're not exempt, or we don't want to cut down a lot of trees. It makes more sense just to have an exemption, and that not cutting down a lot of trees has become a popular defense as well. And I think you're going to hear that at Deep Brook.
Okay.
So people are watching our meetings and say it worked for them, so it's going to work for me.
Questions or comments? Next on here, Moniz Estates, National Heritage Endangered Species Program, Notice of Non-Compliance, review of matters presented, votes may be taken.
Yep. So I don't know if you folks saw the NON. I contacted Natural Heritage, and I think Ryan asked about it not too long ago, maybe a year and a half ago. about this project, because I found in the files that Natural Heritage actually found that it would be a take to build those houses there, and that they needed to redesign their project. So they ignored it. They didn't even get a NIPD's permit, they didn't do any of those things, they just started building their project. And it isn't way out of the way, you'd have to be going there for some reason to find it. And I only found it because I took a wrong turn leaving Morton Lane one day. So Natural Heritage has been in contact with me. I've asked to go and meet with the head of enforcement at Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program. They're two towns over from where I live. And get a better understanding of, what they want to enforce. I dealt with this in Uxbridge, and I would call Natural Heritage and say, we had a electrical reliability project like Eversource wants to do, but it was National Grid. And they had killed a box turtle, and they picked it up and threw it in the dumpster and weren't gonna say anything. So I saw it, I went and got the turtle, and I called Natural Heritage and said, turtle sweeps, GPS on turtles, the whole 9 yards there. And they said, well, you're there and we're here, you enforce it. And I don't know that we have any enforcement authority for Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program. So I want to meet with them and explain to them that every letter they write us says there's no take, but we don't know that they're doing their projects in accordance with Natural Heritage approved. We don't see the back and forth. And I've been surprised that some of the projects that come before us are getting no takes, when there's clearly more to the job than has been put out there. So you're in a town that has a lot of wildlife, has a lot of really good resources, and unless we tighten it up, they're just gonna start falling by the wayside.
So you said what did they not file?
They filed a filing for Natural Heritage to approve that the project they were doing was not gonna kill any wildlife and take their habitat. Natural Heritage wrote back and said, it is a take, you will affect animals and habitat, resubmit your plan. And it got missed at notice of intent time. When I went through the file to possibly send him an enforcement order, I found it. It was during COVID, so I contacted Natural Heritage and said, here's your file number, here's your letter, can you please tell me, did they file a new application? Because I can't find that they did. It took them a year and a half.
What was the date on the notice of intent, do you know? Off the top of your head, when they filed?
I don't.
I don't remember the project.
But we can
I
get
think that was
there.
before I was
Yeah.
on the commission.
Yeah,
And then the
Wait
whole,
before
the
you
entire
go
project
forward.
is natural, is priority habitat. And you folks saw that they're dumping, unrecyclable glass on the ground out there with straws and bottle caps and all of that. They didn't have a NIPD's permit. They applied for one after I kind of forced the issue, but they were untruthful on their application as to when the project started, and they made it a year later than it really was. And that's signed under the pains and penalties of perjury. So there's some things amiss there.
Okay. Is he here?
I don't know what's here.
Are you here for any of these specific projects?
I'm just here in case you guys somehow bring up Cushing Lane sold
Okay.
projects. I'm one of the abutters.
Okay.
I knew that they go in
Anthony?
front of the planning board tomorrow, and I'm gonna be down in Florida, yes.
Are you Anthony?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring that today because I was there today. It didn't make it on the agenda, but it's an emergency, so.
So let's take you're here, let's do that now then.
You wanna do that now?
Yeah, then we'll do
Okay,
that. That's
so-
fine, he's here, then yeah.
We've been having internal meetings, department meetings. Mark Francois, chairman of the planning board, Andy Babola, building commissioner, Jamie Kelly, Nexamp's attorney, John Markey, business development person from Nexamp, and Jennifer Duquette, their construction manager or office person. And we've pretty much won the battle on, there is a wetland in the middle of Cushing Lane. They tried very hard to say that that didn't matter. If it was missed, it's too bad. You know, you guys approved it, that's it. I got
That's
it
the thing
differently.
you two found, isn't it?
Yeah, up
Yeah.
Yeah.
again.
And it's a significant system if you go on to near map and go back historically. It's a pretty long connection there. And
That was not, you've seen the plans they submitted, that wasn't on the plans.
correct, but they did sow some wetland plants, but they didn't call it out.
Okay.
And their
'Cause
feeling
we,
was,
when, in our defense, when we went there, there's like 2 feet of snow on the ground, so I don't think we would've saw it anyways.
yeah. So what came out of that was they offered to go back out and delineate that. And I was told that it wasn't delineated and that they felt that they were, again, exempt from having to identify a wetland that was missed by the commission. It was missed by the engineer, it wasn't missed by the commission. And I held my ground and asked them if they wanted to have, same offer we made from Morton Lane, can EPA and DEP come out and tell you what they think? No, we don't come out. So I heard word back through the group that's meeting that it looks like Cushing Lane is gonna be off the table. It's right down the middle of the project, it doesn't work. And then Woodbridge, 1052 Main Street branches off of Cushing Lane, excess. And back when I was working with the planning board, when Henry Lee Young left as the acting planner, I was involved in those permits and stormwater permits. And Nexamp did not have access to Cushing, to the White property and to the 1052 property because Cushing Lane ended, I don't know, 100 or 150 feet away from where they needed to get into that property. And there were some negotiations going on between Nexamp, Alan Clapp, and Anthony Kudo, who's the owner of 2 lots, 3 lots?
One lot, 70.
One lot. And then there's the abutter on the other side, and they both own to the middle of the road of this private part of Cushing Lane. And Nexamp insisted that they had access, that, you know, they wanted their permits extended and they wanted a building permit. So Dave DeVignan, in a planning board meeting 2 weeks ago that Andy Bobola and I were asked to attend, brought up the fact that until Nexamp constructed the rest of the road from where the road ended prior to his house and another house, until they constructed that road and the cul-de-sac, that those 2 parcels had no frontage and were not qualified to get a building permit. And that you'll need to build the road and put in the cul-de-sac before you can get a permit. And what's going on in town right now is almost all of these special permits for the solar fields that haven't been put under construction expire on June 3rd. All of them, every one of them. And when Nexamp came into the last meeting, they actually submitted their own motions to the planning board to make. And it didn't go over well with the planning board. And they submitted motions that they wanted the planning board to give them temporary extensions of their special permits or extension of their special permits. So I asked for a detailed schedule of, just like Navison did for us. What are you gonna do, when are you gonna vegetate, you know, what's your time schedule, all of those things, and they refused to do it. I got an email back from Jennifer Duquette saying, I'm not gonna get granular about this. I'll just tell you what we're gonna do, but I can't tell you when. And it really doesn't work that way. So the planning board picked up on that and said, we want the schedule too. So they voted to require it. She told me she couldn't do it, but when they voted to require it, she said she could do it. She told them she could install the road by June 3rd. And I knew that was actually dead on arrival. There's no way you're gonna build a road and put a cul-de-sac in less than 30 days. Especially with they don't own the land. So I got a phone call from someone that they were out there working. And in one of the internal meetings, I mentioned crossing what I think is an intermittent stream right at the construction entrance at Cushing Lane. They said it was a drainage ditch, but looking at the aerial photos of the wetland system, it's a stream.
That wasn't delineated either.
Nope, it wasn't.
Okay.
Yep. And when I first went out there, if you remember, I stopped a guy in Bates and said, "Is there a wetlands crossing a replication here?" And he said, "Yes." So I didn't stop him, and I went back to the office and looked, and there isn't. They just said it was a drainage ditch.
There was no replication
Right,
on that.
there was nothing. So I told her, you need to work that out in the internal meeting, and she said, well, what if we put crane mats down to go over it? And I would call it a corduroy road. And I said, I could support crane mats. I could support that. And they never submitted the plan for the crane mats, they never submitted those things. I got a phone call last week that they actually went out there and installed the crane mats. So I went out, and sure than Shinola, they've got 200 feet of crane mats right through the wetlands, across the stream. And there's a stream, when you get to the back of Mr. Kudo's property and get into the 1052 property, they filled the stream in with all of the slash from putting in the crane mats or the corduroy road, and put the mats over it. So when I contacted her, she wrote back and said, we only cut some grass out there. And that was BS. And their construction inspector was there, his name's Paul, he's a very nice guy, he's very honest. And I said, Paul, what's going on? Jennifer said we have permission, and I said, you don't, and you need to start asking Jennifer to see it in writing, because this is not true. And I said, where's the erosion controls? You cut all this stuff down? Oh, we're gonna do that tomorrow. I was like, no, this isn't how it works. And I raised my voice a little bit. And the neighbor's out there, the lady, she's in tears, she's crying in the middle of the street. So then we came back and they installed some silt fence back at that original entrance. They installed it backwards, and they put it so that all of the water, they tracked a lot of mud onto that corduroy road because they're driving through this wetland up there. The way they put the silt fence in, whatever mud comes off is being directed into the stream by the silt fence. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And like underneath those crane mats to go in, is there any sort of like filter fabric or something to catch what's falling through the crane mats?
They didn't do it. And what's happened here is you can extend a special permit after 2 years if you can demonstrate that you have a substantial start to the project. So I think that by putting in the corduroy road and doing all that, they're gonna come into the planning board meeting Thursday night and say, here's our progress, we started this, but you can't break the law to get substantial compliance. And then she wrote me an email that at a meeting, Jamie, Kelly, and I approved putting in the corduroy road. And I wrote back and said, that wasn't a meeting of the Conservation Commission, it was an internal meeting trying to help you guys advance your project and get through all these technical items and not have 3-hour meetings on TV. So last meeting, they submitted new plans. They wanted the planning board to vote on them by tomorrow night. The next day, they submitted another revised plan. And they didn't get to the planning board in time. And they're just doing whatever they want to do. It's incredible. I've never seen a company like this just say, the hell with the Conservation Commission, the hell with the building commissioner. So I gave her a verbal cease and desist to stop and talked to the building commissioner, and he issued a written cease and desist for Cushing Lane and Woodbridge. And I believe that Mark Francois had a meeting with Jamie Kelly and John Markey this morning, and Markey was bringing up some points, and Mark Francois said, well, I went there and they filled in a stream. I can't speak about that. I can't help my client with that. And John Markey's trying to do one job, and the client's doing the completely opposite of what they're telling him. So I am going to issue a cease and desist order there. It'll be up to you guys whether you ratify it or not. But this is just going to keep happening if we don't buckle down on these guys and make them do it. And people are starting to see, that this isn't happening. You know, one of our parties that was here tonight called everybody in town that were asking to get a stormwater permit and said, come see us, we can help you. So this is building a little momentum to everybody have the same story. And one of the comments from Zenith, Beals and Thomas said that the basins would have to be 3 times larger than they are to accommodate the project. And their comment was, well, that would require cutting down an awful lot of trees. You don't want to make us cut down a lot of trees. We should just get a waiver. And that's been a familiar story. And my comment is, build less houses. You're trying to overdevelop the site. You want to build 15 houses. You can't meet the stormwater requirements because of 15 houses. And I've asked Beals and Thomas to give me a calculation of how many house lots could be built that would meet the 10-year storm requirement. And I don't know why we would want to give a waiver to any project to exceed the stormwater requirements and cause flooding downstream. So, that's where I'm at on that.
So can we go see, they have a stop work order on them right now from the building inspector, so nothing, the site isn't gonna change, correct?
Correct, and I've directed them not to change anything.
Okay, so can we add that to our site visits just so we can go?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I, even if you have time during the afternoon or some night, I almost sent you guys an email Friday night saying, could you please go by, Cushing Lane if you have time to look at it. And I decided I wasn't gonna do that to you because it was just, wasn't set to go.
Well, it's good to have more context now, too.
Yes.
Yeah. All this information is used. Did you want to add anything to that, sir?
I got a couple pictures if you guys want to see some stuff, but.
Yeah, if you could come up and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And identify yourself for the right here.
Anthony Kudo, we own lot 7E on Cushing Lane. Early in the project, we were approached by Alan Clapp, who doesn't work for Nexamp anymore, asking for what he considered a small easement. And we didn't believe that they had the legal access to go across our property. And the day that I met with him, he literally told me, he said, I need either half of your road as the easement, or the 2 neighbors on the west side would have to grant me easements. And
So
I said,
you're on the east side of Cushing Lane?
yes.
The last house.
So I said, for what they were offering, I said, it wasn't worth, he offered $2,000 for an easement. And I said, it's not worth $2,000 for the neighbors to all hate us. So when the project started moving forward, we didn't really agree with the way the projects were going, and when we attended the meetings, we didn't like the way that the meetings were going. They were always requesting the minimum of everything, and it seemed like they were getting everything that they were looking for. They wanted to put a farm fence. I said, I don't think a farm fence was suitable. There should be a fence to protect the property. They got a farm fence. I asked for a 50-foot buffer off the back. I didn't get that either. And originally, both projects were being taken at the same time. So it was both projects discussed. I asked a number of times, can we split them in 2 and separate them so that you can discuss one? But it was like they were both getting approved or that was it. So as it went through, I said I didn't want to be the neighbor that came here and complained all the time. And both boards that we went in front of said, well, why don't you guys work together? And they would never reach out. I told them at one point, I said, listen, we don't want to be in the middle of the project. I said, we're willing to do a long-term lease or just purchase the land. And we never discussed a price. And they said, the project's too far along already, so we're not interested in that. And the whole time they knew that they still didn't have an easement, but they figured if no one says anything, we'll just continue. And that's been the pattern that they've done. They've continuously trespassed on our property. We had to post a property, they park in the property. They put surveying marks in the middle of the property, and they're all still there today. The sign for the project is on our property. I called them on, I believe it was March 21st, and I asked them to remove the sign and to stop trespassing on the property. They never returned a call. So the Thursday after, I think it was right after the planning board meeting, I went to the next day, and they literally had an excavator in Woodbridge. I couldn't see it. There was no wood there or anything. He drove right over the stream, and he was so far in Woodbridge I couldn't even see him. And the gentleman that came out, I said, hey, you can't park there. And I said, do you work for Nexamp? And he said no, but he had a Nexamp helmet on. So I said, well, you can't park your car where it's parked. So we were hoping that things would turn around, but it just seems like they do whatever they want. Even down the street, they were approved to do some selective clear cutting. They cut everything to the property line. So they do what they want, and then they ask for waivers afterwards. They were approved for a 20-foot fire lane all the way around the project. Now they want to change it. They want it to be smaller. So, I mean, I don't know what to do. I'm hoping the boards will help us out, but I can show you some pictures. And
So I asked, the inspector's name is Paul from Nexia. Again, very nice guy, very honest. And I said, you're crossing two streams here. And he said, yeah, there's two stream crossings on the project. And I know these are not right because they've denied that the first stream is not a stream.
so that's Woodbridge right there, and that's what they drove across. The next picture will actually show you a little bit of the stream right there.
Oh, yeah.
I took a walk in there Monday, incredible amount of birds in there. It was just incredible. I did pick up 7 ticks though.
All right.
Jeez, that's no surprise.
They were big ones though, they were easy to get.
That's standing on my property, taking a picture of the back of the sign. So it's definitely.
So this is the west side of Cushion Lane, right? Like if you were facing north,
I think.
like if the solar field was behind you, you're on.
So this is going towards Cushing Solar. So that's the end of the street.
Yeah, so, all right.
This picture's about as fresh as it gets, too. Today at 3:45.
No, that's when I printed them.
Oh.
Yeah.
You said that posted sign is on your property.
Yes.
And he's posted that a while ago. Now the other neighbor on the other side has posted her property. And when I went there Monday, she actually parked her car across the road. But she did call me this morning at 10 o'clock, very upset that they were out there again. And they parked on her property and.
So that's the number that they have posted on the sign. I called, left a 3-minute message, never got a return call.
They told us months ago they would fix those silt socks going over that pipe
Yeah.
when Bates was there. Yeah, I mean, these are multi-million-dollar projects, and they treat them like they're putting a driveway in somebody's house. And they can't even do that right.
That's so sucks.
This is, like, you say it all the time, this is from the start, you know, and this is gonna be a project that's gonna be there for 25 years, so, you know.
Yeah. And if they can't do the small things, I mean, you can't
It's
trust
just,
them to do
it's
the
just
big
not a
things.
good look from the start,
Right,
you know.
right.
And I voiced my concerns from all the meetings originally. I'm not sure if you remember any of them, but it was mainly that I was concerned that cutting all those trees down was gonna make our land unbuildable. Like right now, we have enough land to put 2 houses on it. And I asked both boards to just not picture it as a vacant piece of property, to like vision it as 2 house lots with 2 houses on it when you approve the project.
Right. Yeah.
And everything they did was to the minimum.
But blocking that stream could flood your land.
Absolutely. And the worst part is that stream goes along our land. It goes into like a small cow pond, and then it crosses the street. And we've seen issues 30 years ago where all the properties on the other side of the road were getting flooded when we got a lot of rain. So it's not just our property discharges across the street.
Yeah.
And all those houses that are lower, they're all gonna get flooded out too.
Okay,
So,
thanks for
That's
letting us
about
know.
Yeah.
I appreciate you
Thank
guys
you.
listening.
Thank you. Do you want
Thanks,
those back
Anthony.
or those
No,
from
you
the
can have them.
department? Okay. Okay, we've got now the Sun
550 Main Street.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of rainstorms last week. They were kind of insignificant down here, 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch. I got a phone call from John Walsh at 582 Main Street. And he has hired somebody with a drone, and they did a drone flight over the site. And it turned out that Navison had actually filled in the basin to put in their array. They didn't want to miss those panels. And if you remember when Bill Madden was here, and I asked him if he was comfortable with them going back to work, he said he was, because the basin was 3 times the size it needed to be, and that could be reduced after the site was stabilized and work on down the road. Bill also sent them a communication saying, you really haven't closed the loop on that to me, on your construction activities, and I want to hear from that, and he didn't hear from them. So I got the phone call, I got the drone pictures, the basin was chock full, the other basin was chock full, and once again, they were pumping water uphill to another basin, pumped it up in the ground, and trying to recharge it, which was gonna cause another mounding effect and more flooding, and it wasn't what we approved. So I called Bill and said, let's go out and do an unannounced inspection. So we went out, and all of the racks are up and all of that's there, but all of their BMPs they put in to slow the stormwater down going across the site, the straw wattles, had been run over, mangled, disabled. All of the straw that they put down to stabilize the site was gone. There was nothing there. They committed to hydroseeding the site and having some grass growing by April 15th. Wasn't going to hold them to that, to the button, but went out and there's no hydroseed. It's been applied with a hairdryer or something. There's some here and some there. And Joe Scott, who's their construction manager for the site, was there. And he said, oh, nice to see you. And we said, no, it's not. And this is what's going on. And he goes, well, we're under construction. I said, I know you're under construction, but you can't run this stuff over and ruin it. And Bill gave him a few syllables on, you never responded to me, you reduced the size of the basin, and we're going for a walk. So they went for a walk around the entire site. And Bill sent in a report. I'll send you that picture report. And his comments are, the site's no longer stabilized, these things aren't going on. So while I was there, Mark Anderson was trying to call me. And I told the site person to tell Mark that I don't want to talk to Mark, I want to talk to Steve Campbell. So Steve Campbell called pretty quickly. And I explained what was going on, and I said, I know that you know what you're doing, but you're the executive stuck in the office. You're not out of these jobs, and quite frankly, Steve, your guys are letting you down. I know you have the best intentions, but they're just letting you down. And he said, okay, don't talk to Mark Anderson anymore. And I said, believe me, I have no intention, I'm gonna call you. So he offered to have Bill Madden come by as many times as he wants to do inspections. So I'm gonna ask Bill to go by and do weekly inspections at their expense. He'll provide reports. And that will keep them on their toes a little closer there. And I also got a communication from EPA asking me for some new pictures. So I told them there'd been a new event out there. So I sent him Bill's report. And there's probably going to be another NIPD's violation there from EPA. And these people are all in a hurry because
Are they building? Are they already putting the panels in?
It looks,
They will be
if
soon.
you look from Perry Hill Road, it looks like it's a working solar farm. From
Yeah, it's
that-
not, there's no panels there.
No,
I think
but from
I
that
saw the
angle
truck.
it does. It
Yeah,
looks
I think
like
the
it's up
panels
and running.
showed up today. I saw the tractor trailer. So I didn't want to stop the job. I know that there's a time-sensitive issue there to get power off the project, or the project is dead. It would leave us with an unfinished site. It would leave the Westgate's in a terrible position. And Bill felt that it was manageable if he went back. And I believe Steve Campbell. I've worked with him before, and he's always done what he said, but it's only as good as the guy who does it. And those guys just aren't that good. So I think Bill will have it under control. We'll keep an eye on it. EPA is going to ding him again. The first report still hasn't gone out. And he said, I want to know before I send this report. So I told him, in my opinion, there were new violations. And I sent him the pictures and stuff. So that's what's going on there. But this takes a lot of time to go by all of these places every day and babysit them. And it's a game of cat and mouse with Nexium.
Yeah, it's too bad that Mr. Walsh had to actually spend money on a drone.
He didn't, he hired a lawyer who has a drone.
I see.
That's what's going on there. He's had enough.
Yeah.
They don't feel comfortable living in their house.
Hmm.
His wife is completely unnerved that if that basin fails, their house is coming off the foundation.
Wow.
And she doesn't want to live there anymore.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else with business for the commission? Okay. Well, our next meeting is scheduled for May 24, and we have at least one stop on our site visits for May 20th.
We did get a new NOI today for the new access road to Park Drive Solar. They're gonna go in
Lambert Street?
Lambert Street. So, I was at the planning board meeting when they were going into, again, use Brooks Road. And this place was standing room only, for the planning board meeting. And Sim Carfa had met with the planning board and myself and Andy Babola, everything internally with Jamie Kelly, and said, we're not gonna go to Lambert Street, we're going back to Brooks Road. Okay, so now today the NOI comes in for Lambert Street. And the problem with Lambert Street is they need to take like 4,000 square feet of wetlands and do a replication. But there's already a 4,000 square foot replication on the project and not from Brooks Road. And that would exceed the amount of wetlands replication that can be on a project. They could go for a limited project approval from the feds. That might take them a year or so. Their permit expires June 3rd as well. And I suggested in the internal meeting, so the MEPA regulations, you need to go through MEPA if you're gonna disturb more than 2.5 acres. And the MEPA regulations say that you can't segment a project to defeat the wetlands portion of the takings. So if you add those two up, they exceed the limit, and if you're saying it's a separate project, but it's part of the same property, it could be considered segmentation. Same property, same stuff, 8,000 feet. That won't be your decision, but that'll be a decision made by MEPA. So they submitted Lambert Street out of the blue today. So we're really confused whether or not it's Brooks Road or Lambert, but the people from Brooks Road, last meeting, left thinking it wasn't gonna be Brooks Road.
Oh, God.
And then the people from Lambert Street got word that they were back to Brooks Road. And I'm almost wondering if they're juggling these public hearings, hoping that someone's not gonna show up. So I've alerted some of the people in the Park Street area that they need to keep an eye on the notifications for meetings and just, be prepared to show up. If they do go through this notice of intent for Lambert Street, that opens up onto appeal periods and all these things for the project. So I don't see them, being ready by June 3rd.
Can't see how
So
that's
that project's, that permit's probably going down in flames and will require a new one. And their concern is the new bylaw has a 150-foot setback from the property line rather than 10 feet. And that's a significant amount of panels around a big project. It's about the money for them, not about what's bad for the town. And one other thing that happened at the meeting was that they were trying to get their building permit for 1050 where the flooding's been happening. And I was adamant that road's not gonna work there for 20 years. A drain needs to be put in. They wanted the town to pay to put in a drain. And when someone comes in a town and does a project, the benefit to the town is an increase in infrastructure paid by the developer, not by the town. So once again, the planning board backed that up and said, nope, we want you to come up with a plan to install a drain at your cost.
Yeah.
So they've been tasked with that as well.
That's good.
It is good.
All right, I guess then,
Motion to adjourn.
do we have a second?
I'll second
All in
that.
favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, Ed.